All right, we're back on Morning Line. It's our final segment with our guest, Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Vicki has waited patiently, so we'll take her call next. Good morning, Vicki. Hi there.
Good morning. How you doing, Mr. Hall?
Good morning.
This is Vicki. I wanted to see, have you ever thought about running for the chief? And I would like to know if you would. I think you'd be a good candidate. Well, and also, I want to say that they should have gone and get the body cameras, because number one, if it was turned around and if it was their son, they will hurry up and get him.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so Vic, I appreciate you saying that, Vicki. You know, one of the things I hope Nashville considers down the road, let's get me out of the way, because I don't want this to sound like, but I do think Nashville ought to rethink moving forward the election of the police chief and sheriff. And other cities are doing this, and other cities are thinking through it. We were 60 years ago putting the government together. You hear a lot, you know, the COB, and you have a lot of people about accountability for police chiefs, and you have, you know, there's an issue in South Bend right now where the mayor who's running for president's have an answer for the police chief. I mean, really what we're talking about here is if you want to be over the law enforcement of our community, the community is demanding accountability. You're never really going to get accountability through an appointment of someone who very often doesn't know anything about law enforcement. So what I believe we should do, it is a state requirement that you elect a sheriff in every county, and every other county you do it that way here. Here, because of the metro government, we have a police department and sheriff's office, and we kind of, as you well know, we live and we work well together, and I think Chief Anderson is doing a fine job. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think going forward, the city needs to rethink it. I really believe you would be better served to elect the person who does all that. And here's why.
Okay, just to be clear for folks, and this woman too, because a lot of people maybe don't realize it, is the police chief is not elected in Metro. He is basically hired by the mayor, and the mayor's his boss. The sheriff is elected, his boss, you. All right, so you're saying that you think it wouldn't be a bad idea to open it up so that the police chief is elected as well?
Yes, and here's why. By the way, you forgot one critical name. The DA in our county, who's the most powerful of all of these names, more than the mayor.
People don't realize that. They think, oh, the mayor's most powerful, or the chief and the sheriff.
No.
The DA he's the one person that can take your freedom away.
Right.
And that's a pretty big power.
And people say, well, yeah, but it would politicize these jobs. What the most powerful position in our community is the DA, and it is elected. And so, like it or not, that's how that's going to work. And so, if you elect the person who can prosecute the charges, the one position you can't pick is the one that gets the most attention from the community. I'm listening to Vicki, I've heard others, and we hear it everywhere. There's demands for police chiefs to resign. Well, the only way they can resign is through a mayor who catches enough pressure politically. And to me, if you want to be over law enforcement, stand out on the steps and say, I want body cameras or I don't. I believe the shooting was justified or it wasn't. And right now, you're filtering all that through. Nashville's not unique, by the way. But I think we need to really rethink it. I was against the COB because of that. I think if you want accountability, you don't need to form another board, because it in itself is just between the appointment of it and the person. I think the person should be accountable to the people, because that's really what they're saying as community. I mean, I just watched last night this South Bend issue where the mayor there is being hammered over wanting the police chief fired. And my point is, if there was an event that was wrong, whatever it may be, let the person who's in that job be accountable for it. And you really can't do that in a city like this or others where you're appointed through somebody. Law enforcement has become, as we know, very, very, very almost the lack of accountability is the question of the officers and the leadership. And so in most cities, you appoint that person.
Okay, because I'm kind of torn on this, just because the whole point you made about critics saying, well, that will politicize these positions. Now, you run, and by the nature of your duties, you know, you run the jail and all this, maybe you're a little more insulated from some of the politicization that other sheriffs have to deal with. But I just worry about, I like sometimes the idea of, one, you not having to campaign so often. So you focus. I know campaigning is nothing anyone really likes doing in general. But two, that you know, you have a police chief then that can kind of just go about his his business and can almost be provided some insulation if you have things run properly, where he can do what he thinks and really believes is right, regardless of what the public, and the public's not always right, by the way,
right.
and is insulated by a mayor. Hopefully, if that mayor, he or she is a good person, watches him and holds him accountable. I'm trying to decide which is better there, because the politicization of it worries me sometimes to some degree, and I'm trying to decide which is better.
So are you against the DA being elected?
I mean, yeah, in some ways I see some of the same. Well, I'm not.
Okay.
I haven't decided. Is my point.
Okay.
I mean, but I'm not falling down strongly on one side, because I can see the district attorney campaigning on some issue, with some segment of the population, and I don't want him to have to cater to one. As a DA, I want him to, independently prosecute, aside from whether or not I've been getting a lot of votes from these folks or these folks or these folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I struggle with that too. I mean, but don't forget, the person who's appointing that person
I know
is influenced by everything you just said, by who to pick for the job, how to police. I mean, I'm not.
So you think we have that Citizens Oversight Board, which, by the way, I haven't heard much about lately at all, frankly, but I mean, I'm sure it's getting up and going slowly but surely. That's there, and it probably wouldn't have had to come to fruition had we elected our police chief.
No doubt about it. I mean, what are you asking for? Demand of accountability.
Because
if
they were upset with what the chief was, they just vote him out.
And so my point, we're building now apparatus around us that's probably not going to accomplish what the people want,
and that's
ultimately.
And the people want that, and that's where we have it.
And I'm not, by the way, I agree with you. I don't love the political part of it. I don't love people having to run, but because of the issues you're talking, the tainting of it. But what we're forgetting is that the most powerful one of these, no matter what the police chief does, if the prosecution doesn't want to go forward with these types of cases, whatever the cases are, the DA ran, I'm not going to prosecute marijuana charges, right? I'm just making this up. This is not a...
No, I understand.
And the police keep arresting him, he's not going to prosecute. I mean, that's his authority. So my point is, the most powerful in these people are already elected. The person who's appointing the person that you really want to be held accountable is also political in nature. And it makes me feel, and her question, I think, was, in some cities what happens is, let's call it street law enforcement. The police side would work under a sheriff who was elected, and then you'd have corrections under that person, and you may have civil process. So you'd have a whole division. So the what you and I would call the city police would move underneath a person who's elected. They did it in Las Vegas. They've tried it. The charter governments, I think Denver's trying to do theirs that way now. In the Northeast, the issue about metro governments was hot 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But the policing of our communities has never been more volatile than it is right now. And so in my opinion, what's difficult is to get the community comfortable that whoever the next mayor is or the present mayor is going to do what they want him to do to the police chief. I mean, you hear this everywhere.
By the way, for that to happen, just to make it so that the chief would be elected, that would have to change the city charter, and that would be something that the council would have to go for.
The voters could do it. That's who get the COB on here. And when they were pushing the COB, I just thought, pause and write it in a way that would give you what you really want. Personally, I didn't want the job. I don't want that.
Yeah,
I don't want to be perceived as no. But I'm just, and this is down the road. Maybe we fix it other ways. But what the people are screaming is accountability. And what I'm not saying elections do that, but it sure gives the...
I wonder how police chiefs would think, be it Chief Anderson or others. I could see some police chiefs who maybe get in a position and the city manager or mayor changes, and they can't stand the guy or the woman, and they're like, gosh, I wish I could run because this guy's going to fire me for no good reason. I'd rather be elected because people like... I mean, do you think it would be split, or do you think most police chiefs would say, I like it the way it is? Maybe it's because they've only known, or have you ever had any conversations? And I'm not talking about Chief Anderson here, but do you get a sense from chiefs how they would feel about it? I think there would be some that would rather run. They're political animals maybe, and they know that the public loves them. And I think there's some that say, I like the insulation because that mayor's my buddy, and I know that person's going to protect me.
It'd be really good if you can get the honest answer.
Honest answer.
It's a tough
maybe
question.
off the record, or not off the record, rather anonymously. I'm curious what police chiefs would say. My thinking is that most of them would probably say status quo. I'd prefer to leave it this way. But I think that's mostly because that's what they know. Maybe they're not thinking out of the box, and maybe if they sampled it the other way, they'd. How would you feel, rather, if you were appointed as opposed to elected?
I would hate it.
Okay.
And by the way, I believe, I'm not going to tell you which mayor, I'm not going to tell you which chief of police. I've been through a bunch of them. You know, I've always jokingly said the only difference between me and the chief of police is I know when I run.
Right.
I mean, their worlds are so appointment and driven. Look, you woke up one day, the mayor was out, and then you got to figure. I mean, so there's a lot of, and don't ever, and we jokingly say this, they're all political animals. They have to be. This world that we live in is it just doesn't election politics. But I have had more than one police chief tell me that they are pushed in directions to enforce laws for certain agendas of these mayors.
Right.
So that's not healthy either.
No, that's not healthy, and that's a great point.
And it makes it uncomfortable that they can't say anything
because
they can't
that's
stand
your boss.
Up. Right.
You do it or you're gone.
Right. I mean, you know, the whole, if you trace the way all this stuff works, it's, you know, I don't know the answer to this or not, but if the chief of police wants body cameras, he should stand out and ask for body cameras. If the mayor wants him to have them, I don't feel great about that, whether I'm for it or not. I mean, that's not really what the role is. If it's an enforcement, really about accountability.
Let the expert decide, because he knows what his officers
and let
need.
him live or die with that decision.
Yeah,
I mean,
as opposed to maybe getting it from a mayor who's doing it because of political pressure.
It's just now again, it doesn't solve all the problems because you can elect bad people, right? But don't forget, we elect bad mayors too.
Oh yeah.
And we also and we appoint bad people to directorship. So it's not going to solve the problem of purity, but I just think everyone's screaming accountability, and we're fixing it with Band-Aids that really probably aren't the big picture what they're wanting. But
interesting. Yeah, I'm going to think on that, because I mean, you always make great points, and I can see both sides of the issue.
Yeah, me too.
But you know, running, you do have to focus on running, don't you? But the power of the incumbency can be positive.
And I don't want the job, Vicky. So I'm just saying that when I'm talking, I'm not saying now.
Happy as sheriff. All right. Well, Sheriff, thanks for coming on. This
Thank
was a
you
great
very much.
conversation. It's
Appreciate
always
you.
good. And again, congratulations on this new position for the next year. And that's really interesting what you said about how many leaders there are of national organizations already at the sheriff's. I didn't know that. So all three of you, it's a department to be proud of.
It's great.
Thanks
you very
again
much
for coming on.
Thank you.
Take a break. Be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this.